We're going to be looking at the Donchian channel indicator. This indicator was developed by Richard Donchian probably back in the 1950s and was used for commodity prices as well as equity prices. It's a very simple trend following technique that's been successful and it has stood the test of time. So let's go and take a look how you can use it in your own trading and how this indicator works. What we're looking at on the screen is a daily candlestick chart of a well-known security. It could be any security. The first thing we have to do is put on the Donchian trading channels themselves. And how we do that, we simply go to our on-chart studies, because this is a overlay on top of prices. So click once, move down and select the Donchian channels, and click once. You can see it's right away on the chart. And this is the default set that Richard Donchian recommended when he first came up with this solution. But you can, of course, adjust it to give wider bands or even tighter bands. It depends on your type of trading. And you can also go back and look at security and see which is the best use of the time bands. So click there, go to default, just click off the screen once, and there you have it. So how this works is very simply, is when prices actually touch the upper level of the band, which is right here, the top of the channel, right here at 25.47, you would get long. Now what's interesting, look at how the market jumped up several days later and continued to go up and stay at the top of the channel. It's only now that it's beginning to fade and you have a signal here at 46.59 that the trend has in fact now turned down for this particular stock. So again, when prices touch the top of the channel, that tells you things are going up, and when they touch the bottom of the channel, it tells you that the trend is going down. So that's how it works in a bull market. Now let's take a look at how it works in a bear market. Here's a good example of a bullish trend turning into a bearish trend using the Donchian channel method. Simple candlestick chart. Let's put on the Donchian channels. So all we do is go to the on-chart studies, click it once, move down and select Donchian channels, click that once. We're already defaulted to 20, which we know that's the Richard Donchian default, and you click off the chart. So as you can see right here, we were a buyer right here on this day, and that would be right around the 950 level, and the market moved up very nicely. We've had some ups and downs. It then started to flatten out and then moved down right here below at 1301, producing a nice profit, and then proceeded to go lower. And that is a classic example of how to use the Donchian channels. So when the market hits the top of the channel, it means the trend is going higher. And when it hits the bottom of the channel, it means it's going lower. Now there are advantages and disadvantages with this particular method. One, it tends to not get out at the top or in at the bottom. Remember, it's a trend following technique, and like many trend following techniques, you're going to leave the top and the bottom off the table. You're going to get the fat part in the middle, which is the important element of catching big profits. So that's how you use Donchian channels. Now there are variations of this. Of course, you could use them with tighter elements. For example, you could use this as your big trend, the 20 right here, and then you could tighten that up to go to something much smaller and just trade in the direction of the major trend, which would be the 20. I think that gets to be very convoluted. Or you can form fit your position, so you just look at it and then you sort of move it around so you get the best fit you think is going to work. In this case, it probably would have been this 11-day based on the move right here, as you've never had a buy signal. So it depends on how you trade, but the Donchian channel is a very popular study, been around for a long time, and it's one that stood the test of time. I hope you enjoyed this review of the Donchian channels and hope you can use it in your own trading in the future.